Hey folks, in today's video I'm going to explain how reality works in terms of feedback loops, timelines, timeline jumping, timeline healing. So basically what you have here is a mirror. On one side it is your outer world, on this side it's your inner world. So there's a feedback loop going on. When we say you're projecting your reality, it means that you have an energetic memory template of who you are, and that shows up, this is subconscious, but it shows up as the world that is experienced outside of you. So you always interact with yourself, and you interact with that type of situation, that type of people that are aspects from your subconscious mind. So when we talk about personality, individuality, who you are as a being, you are a conglomerate of personalities. Okay, so you have different expressions, different moods, and some of them might be dormant, they might be subconscious, they might not yet have been revealed in your journey, which means that you don't know yourself yet fully. All right, and then you might see these other people and they might rub off in a certain way, they might trigger you, and it's so easy to be like, oh, you know, those idiots. But actually they might be mirroring your subconscious sub-personalities. All right, now how we come to have this complex conglomerate of personalities and sub-personalities that are all in effect one individual. We acquire them because we tend to, first of all, mirror the world. That means we go through the reality and we learn the behaviors from our peers. We simply start as far as we are like kids, young children, we start to say and repeat those things that people around us say, and then whatever the parents do, the child starts to imitate that. And so that's an automatic mirroring, and these behavioral sets are then recorded in the subconscious mind, and this is how we can move, drive a car, talk. You know, we just operate from this subconscious memory conglomerate. Now there are also conditioned personalities, which is where we want to express something, but somebody is saying that we are not supposed to do that, right? So that's a school, government, police, parents, whoever, right, peers, they would be saying that's ridiculous, that's stupid, and then we become shunned, we become ashamed to actually express a part of our individuality that becomes dormant. It becomes so-called shadow, because now we form another personality. So let's say I want to say, hey world, what's up? And people are like, hey, shut up, we're busy, right? And then I have this expression like, hey world, what's up, right? That's one aspect of my personality. But then I form another one that's saying, the inner critic, right? That's saying, hey, you better not do that. So in the subconscious, like meta structure, there will be this like, hey, look at me, and then there will be this like, hey, better tone it down, right? So there will be different personalities that are juxtaposed, or they are conditioning one another. And now all of this is already happening in the sub-awareness space, so we might not know that that is even happening within us, right? But then that might be projected when we are in the world and we see the same behavior of like two other people, like in the street. There will be a child, they will be like, hey, look at me, and there will be like a parent figure that will be saying to that child, shh, you need to like tone it down because like it's not appropriate, whatever, right? So you might see that, okay, exchange in the outer world, and then if it speaks to you, if you even like, if it even shows up and you're aware of that, it means that it's something from it's like a behavioral pattern or interaction that happens on a collective level. Now other people are doing it, but you have it inside of you, and once we awaken to our selves as consciousness, then we can also kind of feel into the subconscious, or we can feel emotionally that these things are being triggered, something is awakened inside, and we feel it in the body, so then we can release a pattern where there is inner conflict because one sub-aspect of personality is conditioning another one. So we, in general, want to make these sub-aspects conscious so we can sort of navigate them without like this subconscious juxtaposition and tension between them, because that will feel inside of the body like constriction, almost like a self-doubt, but like an inner subconscious type of anxiety that is an inner conflict, right? So we want to bring this inner conflict into the consciousness, and we want to say, okay, I don't want to behave like this right now, but then I can behave like this right now if I wanna, and then the tension will be gone from the subconscious energetic memory, and we can wear like I'm being serious aspect or I'm being goofy aspect, and that energy can have a free flow. Alright, so again, let me give you another example of these feedback loops, which means that first of all we impress the reality and then we project the reality. So that is in itself a feedback loop. Like, let's say somebody gives me an impression that I should be ashamed of myself, right? And then I feel ashamed of like whatever was my natural expression. I shun that. I go into the world and I cannot express myself, and the world says, oh, you're acting shy, you're so shy, and then again I acknowledge that as a default state of my being, and it keeps on perpetuating until I can break the cycle. Another thing would be like another belief, let's say it's like the feeling of unworthiness or something like this. So you might go into the world, and other people who feel worthy, they get what they want because they just go about the world and they're like, hey, I'm like, can I have this? And people are like, yeah, you're welcome. And you are trying to be like, hey, I would like to maybe like have that, and people are like, nah, like, don't bother me, right? And then again you feel that unworthiness. So it was already inside of you, but then you might create a conclusion like, people do not value me, right? And so we can then understand that we can actually shift our energetic memory in a way where we end up in a loop of situations, this is called a karmic loop, where we are not being valued, that there must be some kind of inherent feeling that we are not worthy. So we may change that, we might shift that, and when we do, there is a quantum shift of the reality and how the people in the reality respond to us. Because if we shift what has been inherently memorized, and we radiate a different frequency. Once we're interacting with that reality, everybody gonna give us like, hey, you're so valuable, like high five, you're so valuable, and you're like, yeah, I feel so valuable, and everybody's confirming that. So the thing obviously is to inspect the outer reality for those things that don't feel like love, because they point us to that shadow work where there might be something that is not self-love, energized, already impressed in our subconscious energetic memory template. And when we look into this outer world, the way the world responds to us, it's exactly as we feel actually about ourselves, whether we are aware of that or not. Now, let me talk about trauma loops for a second, because trauma is like huge energetic impression that gets stuck in the body, and it might not be huge, it might be like a slight trauma, it might be just that we have like a muscle memory of stress when we were in the traffic and it was like a little bit hasty, and then a phone rang, and then a million things started to happen at once, and we have so much impressions and they get stuck in the muscles, and we have tense muscles. So that's just like, we call that accumulated stress, but that is a form of stuck energy, and that is trauma. But then there can be like a larger trauma that is from abuse or just constant neglect when we are growing up or we are in developmental phases, and all of that might form this sort of pain body, which is a lot of impressions that we are not loved, or that we are even harmed, hurt, and abused, that we cannot process and let go of, and they get stuck in the body. So really shitty thing about this is that a person who is holding this type of pain body, they will manifest situations where that abuse might perpetuate. So we might end up in the same interactions with the world, or same scenarios of abuse, or same type of relationships where we are not seen, or we are neglected, or we are straight up harassed or bullied, right? And this is because there is this mechanism in the game of life and how it works that is simply giving us the mirror of what is already impressed in our subconscious. So the bad thing about this is that when we start to accumulate impressions, we are not sometimes having the opportunity to make conscious choices, because we're not yet informed about reality. We're just kids, we're not informed about how reality works, we're not informed about life, we're not informed about self-love, boundaries, and what relationships should and shouldn't look like. So we might just accept any model of relating that is given to us in our developmental phase. So, whatever parents give us, we expect that model subconsciously, and then we reenact that model again and again and again, until we learn that there is something perhaps disturbing in the model of relationship that we are looping, right? So then we might decide that we want to change what the energetic memory, and this is called the inner child work. So we're going into the energetic memory of our impressions from these early phases, developmental phases, and then we are extracting that hurt, and we can say we are integrating, or we are healing, because we are in ourselves love. All right, so we can sort of transform, just by feeling, we can transform these energetic memories where we have been impressed, not love. And every time that we change something in this conglomerate of our subconscious energetic memory, and it is healed and transformed, we experience different relationships, we experience a different reality, and we experience just life through a new lens, okay, where all of a sudden we feel also different within this individuality, within this body, within our emotional body, and then how the world relates to us, it is also updated. So very, 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 very common thing when I work with clients in energy healing, or when I work with myself, and so this can work in a way where we just decide that we do not want to be identified with some kind of like life pattern, right? So we had enough of it, and it does not work for us because we recognize it is something created subconsciously, and it's just not that highest expression of love. So we may then understand that we have an inner wound that is looping, okay, it's looping us in this reality trauma loop. Once we decide that we had enough of that, we can actually, from the space of pure consciousness, completely dissolve the energetic memory of a trauma, or we can dissolve that pain body conglomerate, because to consciousness is not that person that was stuck in that loop, and the consciousness is not that person that's identified with that lifestyle, it's not identified with that suffering, it's not identified with that past and history. And so when we do energy healing, we are stepping out of the ego into the pure being, and then we can shift the energetic memory, which in effect then changes our timeline. It changes the past, it changes what we hold in our individuality energetic memory template in the now, and it changes how the future is going to look and feel for us also. So in this way, sometimes even after only one session, the whole pain body dissolves, and it really just needs also the individuality, the person, because like we are all God playing in a dream, so even the suffering is not real ultimately. All right, so it needs actually the person, the role that we are playing. We need to surrender that role so we can get extracted from that energetic memory, and then we can be poured into a different individuality that is wholesome. Okay, so we can do this in fragments in our subconscious, okay, or we can do it sometimes in a larger chunk. I call it just like batch transformation, where the whole pain body just goes away, and voila, you feel all of a sudden elevated, you feel light, you feel amazing, and then life starts to mirror a different type of, well, destiny, or just different type of play. So sometimes usually throughout life we are just, embedded, and there is a collective trauma, if you will, or collective karma. So everybody's projecting some things are coming out of love, other things are not, and then we're projecting on each other, and we are co-creating this huge multiplayer game, okay? And then usually we are just like accepting life as it is and reality for what it is, and we are accepting these distortions of love as a given, and we relate through them, right? So we just have as a collective a lot of distortions of love, and then we just see that, and everybody's doing that, and then we do that too, and then we might learn that that doesn't work, we are not getting the result that we are inspired to get, so we might decide to shift something, and then we might heal something, and then we may become aware of another pattern, and we might heal that distortion, and then do life again and become aware of another pattern, and we might heal that distortion of love. And we do it in fragments. And we can also do that just on a larger scale, because to ourselves as consciousness, we are God, we are omnipotence, and there is nothing that needs to be inherently there's no default setting, and there's no setting that cannot be transmuted or transformed, okay? But free will of all of our aspects, and the distortion aspects also needs to kind of like turn inwards to love or consciousness, and then the nature of consciousness can kind of just reverberate through all of these patterns and just literally delete the distortion and any energetic memory that is identifying or anchoring us to these distortions. And this is why in certain situations consciousness or Christ, universal consciousness, can heal something like I don't know, like Jesus, he used to heal the leprechauns or lepers. So it's a joke there, kind of silly. But yeah, it can be transformed. The whole nature of reality can be transformed instantaneously if an individual is kind of like surrendering completely to God, self, or Christed figure, avatar, whoever that is witnessing the transformation or healing of that reality as a personification of the absolute self, absolute consciousness. Yeah, there we go.